Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Triangle BNI. My name is Mike Manning, and each week we bring you a small business success story from BNI. If you are not familiar with BNI, it's Business Networking International. It's the world's largest networking organization. Our little slice of heaven here in the Triangle, if you're not familiar with the central part of North Carolina, it's Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. They have 30 chapters meeting each week to help each other grow their business. Five more core groups trying to get to that point to be an official group and almost 600 members each week. And we like to bring you the good success stories from all kinds of walks, all kinds of businesses. And this week, our guest is Scott Moore. Scott, glad to have you here today.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Mike.
He is personal and business development coach at Scott Moore Coaching. You hung your shingle out about 2011, right?
That's right.
Okay. We're going to talk about how you got to that as well. Scott's in RD 48. It is the called the Next Level. They meet at Maiden Inn in Cary on Thursday mornings at 8:15. How long you been in that chapter?
5.5 years.
Okay, right. Some good folks in there, I know, right?
Yep.
Everybody knows what they're doing.
I think for the most part, yeah. I'm currently the president of that group, so I can't do the not my circus, not my monkeys thing anymore.
And they're on paper, they're supposed to listen to you, right?
On paper.
And take your wisdom and guidance as you steer the ship.
To the whatever extent that exists, yeah.
Were you nominated for president because nobody else raised their hand, or did you want to be president this time?
So I'll be real honest about it. Is a year ago, our chapter had lost some members, and I was a little concerned about whether we were going to make it. And I have a lot of personal and emotional investment in that chapter, and there's plenty of other chapters that I could join if it fell apart, because not most chapters don't have a business coach. But I told the president, I said, I'd like to be considered as the next president because I want to do everything I possibly can to make sure that we make it, and we're doing pretty well now. So I'm happy about that.
And stuff happens. Job changes, people, so a lot of chapters have seen that. But a lot of times is they don't have a plan for recovering from that if all of a sudden 3, 4, or 5 people leave.
Right. And what I think is it wasn't like a bunch of people, jump ship because of a common problem. They, people, like you said, stuff happens.
Yeah.
There was job changes. There was, people who needed to be closer to home or whatever. And so, we lost some folks for those types of reasons, but I felt like we needed to have a solid plan to rebuild and try to finish the year strong. And I mean, I'm pretty proud of the fact that our chapter, with only an average of about 16 or 17 members last year, we did $1 million in past business. And we're on track this year to do about 1.4, 1.5.
What's the key to that, do you think?
Well, so I think that what we've identified is there's two things, really. Number one is we all really like each other. We make a really strong effort to do lots of socializing outside the chapter meetings and just stay connected. And that helps tremendously because you're not going to refer to people that you don't like.
Right.
The other thing, though, is experience. Like most of the people, in our chapter have got a decade or 2 or 3 in some cases of doing what they're doing. And so, they're already successful, notwithstanding their BNI relationship. And then that just kind of kicks it up to a whole other level that they have, people out there doing their marketing for them.
Yeah. Who's got seniority in that group?
Oh, well, David Hellinger for sure.
Okay.
I mean, he's our financial advisor. He's my financial advisor. And he founded the group 15 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And he's been a member the whole time.
So who's the unofficial social ringleader? Because every group has
Scott Corbin, for sure. Yeah. I mean, Scott Corbin's a realtor in downtown Cary, and there's nobody that Scott doesn't know. And so I actually asked him to be our sort of events coordinator. Because I mean, Scott lives across the street from the Maiden Inn.
Oh, does he?
And his office is 3 doors down from the Maiden Inn.
Yeah.
And so it's like, hey, who wants to go grab a beer after work?
Yeah.
Scott's a pretty natural fit for our ringleader there.
Because every successful chapter has that unofficial Pied Piper.
Yeah.
For a reason.
Yeah.
And that's who people
Scott's a natural born connector. So
We are here, we're first part of June now. By the way, happy birthday yesterday.
Thank you very much. I
Are
appreciate
you
that.
still counting numbers?
You mean in terms of age? Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
48 now,
Okay.
so,
Oh, you're young.
some days I feel it and some days I don't. Well, my wife
Yeah.
says, "Well, you're getting older, but you're still really immature, so it averages out to be."
Standard for guys, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I tell people the body sometimes, because I was 3 days ahead of you and 10 years ahead of you, so, my body tells me my age sometimes, but mentally, I'm with you, I'm still going.
Yeah.
So I got ideas, I got things to do, I don't care what the calendar says, and everything. So what'd you do for your birthday?
Let's see, so the night before, I was at my 30th, high school class reunion,
Oh,
so I got to
nice.
see
Okay.
folks I haven't seen in many years, and then, well, and also a few I see all the time because,
Mhm.
they're either business or BNI connections, which is
Cool.
funny. Like, I did notice it, I hadn't observed this before, but when I was circling around talking to everybody, it's astonishing to me what percentage of people that I went to high school with started their own businesses,
Really?
eventually. Like, either
Okay.
they're now in their own business or they've been in their own business for
Huh.
years. Like, I saw, Kevin Fontaine with, he's got Fontaine Landscaping,
Mhm.
and you see their trucks around. You
Yeah.
may notice it or not. I notice it all the time because
Yeah.
I went to school with them. But, yeah, there's loads of people who have started their
Okay.
own businesses. I don't know if something about our generation is like, we
Yeah.
realized that it wasn't gonna be like the baby boomers where, you go to work at IBM and work there for 35
I
years.
think it is, yeah. Yeah.
So rather than job hopping all the time, we just decided to hire ourselves.
Yeah.
But anyway, on my actual birthday, I got up and went to brunch with a few of those classmates, kind of a smaller subset of people I wanted to spend a little bit more time with. And then my daughter and I went and finally saw the Avengers movie,
Okay.
which I've been waiting on for a long time. And then
How was it?
it was amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Meet your expectations?
Oh,
Okay.
absolutely, absolutely. I managed to, remain spoiler free on it pretty much, so it was good,
It's
but
hard these days, isn't it?
yeah, and then after I came home and spent a little time with my wife, and then I headed back out the door again because I've got a regular, Sunday night, gaming group that I've been a part of
Oh,
for
okay.
30 years,
What do you guys play?
so right now we're playing Dungeons& and Dragons,
Okay.
I've been a lifelong gamer of all kinds of stuff, board games and card games and
Yeah.
role-playing games, and so,
How'd that group start?
because we were all nerds and, back when we first got off the ground, like, that was
Yeah.
the thing that you quietly did and didn't tell
Oh, yeah.
anybody because you still wanted to go on dates and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, like some of like my lifelong friends have come out.
Oh, I
And
bet, yeah.
so it became the kind of the thing that, like, you could get together and just have drinks with your
Mhm.
friends on a, Friday night once
Yeah.
a week, right? And that would be your social connection.
Mhm.
But as soon as somebody has anything come up, they're going to be like, "Oh, I can't make it this
Yeah.
week,"
Oh,
right?
yeah.
But the structure of the game kind of pulls people together, right? Like you've got
Oh, it's
this,
an appointment. Oh, yeah.
yeah, it
Oh, yeah.
becomes an ongoing
Yeah.
commitment. And I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, people still miss it
Mhm.
because kid got sick or it's your anniversary or
Yeah.
whatever. But for the most part, people make a commitment and they come to it, and it's been kind of the glue that's held our friendships together
And
for
that's a
a long
loving
time.
wife. She knew going in,
Oh,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. All of our wives have kinda, knew this. But, I mean, you know, um, like, my wife has come to some of the gaming events and stuff. Like, I host a big gathering of about 40 to 50 gamers that come from all over the country every
Really?
spring. Yeah, we just had it last month at the end of April. We
Okay.
rent out the summer camp facility out at Umstead Park,
Oh, wow.
and we for 4 days, we just stay there the whole time and play games and eat all our meals together and catch up
Okay.
on friendships that have been,
Oh, very nice.
2 decades in the making.
Now who sets the games that are being played for that? Anybody?
But, I mean, most of the games are either, like, somebody's volunteering to run it
Yeah.
or, there we play a lot of board games too. So, like,
Okay.
you just, "Who wants to play, this game over here?" And we grab it out,
Gotcha.
set it up,
Okay.
and they're kinda pickup games.
Yeah.
But,
And I
so
know
it's not super, like, what we've discovered is when we used to do this over at NC State Student Center, and so we were there all day on a Saturday, for
Oh,
example.
yeah.
And so we had to be a little bit more, like, organized about, like, well, this is what's gonna happen in the morning,
Yeah, okay.
then we're gonna break for lunch, and this is what's gonna happen in the afternoon. And now that we're, like, at the camp the whole 4 days,
Oh,
you
yeah.
can be a little bit more loose and casual and just be like, "Who wants to play this morning?"
Okay. Alright.
Uh,
So do you follow I know esports is getting pretty big. I know ESPN's bought into it. They have half-hour shows now. You sit and watch people play a video game.
Yeah, so
which is there, and there appears to be money in that. Is that something you watch? Does that interest you at all?
well, esports not really so much, like, I get it, like,
Mhm.
and I'm, like, when I talk about being a gamer, right, like, I think of that principally being tabletop games, like games that you
Okay.
play in person
Yep.
with people, but I'm also, I play video and computer games,
Yeah.
but I think I'm just, like, just a few years, a handful of years older than the generation where that actually kinda got popular. I
Mhm.
do, though, I watch, like, YouTube videos and, Twitch streams and stuff like
Yeah.
that of gamers, partly I tell my wife I watch them for 2 reasons. Number 1 is to see people play games really, really well, so if I'm trying to get better,
Yeah.
I can pick up some tips and tricks, and I also watch them to see people play games really, really poorly, so I can feel a little bit superior and entertained by the folks that are not so far along as me.
There are people, I mean, they're what, 20, 21, 22-year-olds making a ton of money playing that.
One of the guys I watch on the regular, he goes by the handle of, Sips, and, he's a member of this group called the Yogscast in Great Britain. They were the first website in Great Britain to hit 1 billion views
Really?
because they were a big Minecraft page, and
Okay.
I'm not really a Minecraft player, but this guy, he's got 1.9 million followers on YouTube, and, the way they've kinda demonetized some of the YouTube stuff, a lot of the, gaming streamers have gone over to Twitch.
Okay.
And I think, he's got a counter at the bottom of his page that says he has 2,700 Twitch subscribers, right? So I don't know how much money they get per person, but I think
Yeah.
it's 3 or 4 bucks a month. So, you figure the guy's
Per?
making, yeah, he's
Oh
making,
my.
10 to 12 grand a month just off
Yeah.
his subscribers, plus
Yeah.
there's donations coming in. So I mean, it's a living. It's kind of crazy, but it
And
happens.
they have, I know out in LA, they've got some, it may be national. They've got some of these former athletes that are buying these teams for the league that's shown on ESPN.
Yeah.
Sort of promo for like Rick Fox, who played for the Lakers the other day as
Yeah.
owner of a team. And,
Yeah.
but I guess, yeah.
My buddy, Ian Bloom, who's a few years younger than me, he's not in BNI, but, he comes to a lot of networking events, and I see him around, and he actually gave the talk last week um, at Triangle Business Breakfast about marketing to a niche, and
Mm,
his, tagline is he's a financial advisor for nerds, and,
nice.
and so he actually keeps up with a lot of that, the esports,
Okay.
type of stuff and posts about it
Smart. I
regularly.
mean, that's when you find a narrow lane like that, jump in it.
Yeah, yeah,
Because not many people either have the interest or are willing to dig that deep, and because it's a smaller pond, but man, you get if you're the only one in that pond,
yeah,
it works out well for
absolutely.
nerds. I like that. Alright, so we are, again, we're one day after your birthday, June 3rd, so how's business been for 2019 for Scott Moore Coaching?
Uh, like, amazing, so, um, I was super busy last year, like, I did a whole bunch of, work travel and also for fun travel. I took my daughter on a 10-day trip out to the West, Grand Canyon and, Yosemite and Los Angeles and Las Vegas, and so I just was like, "Well, I've kinda taken my eye off the marketing ball." I got married in October,
Congratulations.
thank you, and so I was just up to my eyeballs, and I thought, "Well, I should just set my expectations that it's gonna be kind of a slow end of the year, because, when you stop marketing as heavily, you should expect that there's gonna be a lag behind, and, but, quite the opposite, I guess that, I've been doing what I have been doing marketing for long enough um, that I just started to get client after client after client in October and November to the point where I said, "You're gonna have to call me after the first of the year."
Yeah.
And I said to, few people, I said to myself, "Okay, if I haven't heard from them by the 2nd week of January, then I'll get back with them."
Mhm.
And all 4 of them on January 2nd said, "You said wait till after the first of the year. It's January 2nd, so technically it's after the first of the year. I need your help." So finally, I'm graduating a couple of the people, that were in that space. It was mostly, career coaching clients.
Okay.
That's something I do, 'cause I have great passion for sorta trying to help people, figure out what they wanna be when they grow up, even if they're already 40 or 50
It's
or
hard
60 years
sometimes,
old.
yeah.
And, so we're kinda getting a couple of the people there. They've got new jobs or new careers
Very
or
cool.
in one particular case, started a new business. I usually tell people my stated position on that is when somebody says, "I'm gonna start a business," I say, "Well, I'm gonna try to stop you." And if I can, then you'll thank me later. And if I can't, then you might make it. Uh,
Do they take your advice?
I mean, they get where I'm coming from, right? Like
Yeah.
they understand that running your own business is hard.
Oh, yeah.
And most small businesses fail. And I don't want to help somebody start a business that's going to fail. I want to help somebody start a business that's going to make it.
Yeah.
And I think you've got to be willing to do things you've never done before in order to have a successful business. And so when I tell them like I'm going to push back on you,
Yeah.
I don't mean like I'm going to undermine you and
Mhm.
do things like that. I mean, like I'm going to call into question your whole business model. I'm going to ask you hard questions about how you're going to market yourself. I'm
Yeah,
going to
because if they can't defend it to you,
Yeah.
how are they gonna defend it to the community and.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, good. That's nice service to have. We're here with Scott Moore, Scott Moore Coaching. He is in RD 48. It's the next level BNI group. They meet at Maton Inn in Cary Thursday mornings at 8:15. And if you are not familiar with BNI, if you will go to trianglebni.com, in the upper right-hand corner, there's a drop-down box that says Find a Chapter. Click on that. We've got chapters meeting Monday through Friday, breakfast or lunch, whatever works best for you. We just recommend you go visit a chapter. You'll see some incredible people, meet some people who want to help you start or grow a business. So just go visit. Doesn't cost anything to go visit. And you'll meet some cool people like Scott. And every week in a BNI meeting, there's a featured speaker. And depending on the size of your chapter, it's either 5 minutes, 6 minutes, or 10 minutes. And each guest is introduced by the member bio sheet, Scott. So that's how we do it here officially. So our
Right.
speaker today, Scott Moore, business name, Scott Moore Coaching, and they can go to scottmoorecoaching.com
That's right.
to find you.
Yep.
Profession is personal and business development.
Yeah,
Does that
most
work?
in casual conversation, mostly I tell people I'm a career and business coach,
Okay.
and more specifically, a small business coach. Like
Okay.
my clients, I mean, I work with the solopreneurs all the way up to about 15 to 20 employees, and
Yeah.
past that, I'm not saying I would fire a client if they got to be bigger than that, but what I've discovered is most companies that are bigger than that start to lose some of the flexibility that a smaller company has,
Yeah.
and I don't think I'm as effective at coaching somebody that can't make rapid changes.
My guess is when you have clients or prospective clients and you just mention the word career to them, that could mean 100 things to 100 different people, couldn't it?
Oh, sure. Like on the
Okay.
career coaching spectrum, I tell people like, so sometimes I have somebody that has a very laser targeted career goal. Like they're like, I want this one promotion or I want to get a raise. And I
Oh.
have to figure out how can I either explain my value proposition to my boss
Mhm.
or how do I maybe uh, I don't know, tune up a little bit to put a better foot forward at work so I
Yeah.
can accomplish that. Or I'm experiencing some frustration in this one area of what I do, and I want to fix that. And then at the other end of that spectrum, you have the people who were in the same spot, I was, which was, I'm doing this thing, but if I have to do this for the rest of my life, I'll go crazy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so they're really, I mean, sometimes they call it or think of it as a midlife crisis. And, I don't, I guess, have a lot invested in whether we label it that, but
Yeah.
but I do have a lot invested to make sure um, that they can do something they're a whole lot happier with.
Because you wanna wake up in the morning and be fired up about doing something.
Yeah, I mean, somebody said to me at the class reunion, they're like, Scott, from when I, follow you on Facebook and I don't see you all the time, but like, you seem like mostly you just do stuff you like doing.
Mhm.
And I'm like, that's exactly right. There's like a you know, we all have some stuff in our lives that we'd rather not have to do, like I take out the trash
Yeah.
and the compost just like
Yeah.
everybody does, and I have to do my taxes and all that kind of stuff. Um, but I spend about, 80-85% of my time doing stuff. I'm like, I do this
Yeah.
for free.
Yeah.
And so I figure, once you got that licked, everything else is pretty easy.
Yeah, and when I talk to people about, owning a small business, I tell them it's stressful freedom,
Right. Yeah.
and they're like so for people who have owned a small business, they're like, "Yeah, yeah."
Yeah.
But it does offer you, I mean, you are your own source of revenue, but you can take 10 days off if you work it hard and work it right and get to the point where you can take 10 days off.
Yeah. As long, I mean, as I'm in a business where I can usually, if I know in advance,
Mhm.
I can kind of tell my clients, I'm going to be gone for a week. I want to
Yeah.
make sure you're taken care of. So let's do everything we need to do leading up to that and on the backside of that so that you're taken care of while I'm gone. But I'm also keenly aware that like the last time I had a paid vacation day was in 1999. So,
Where'd you go on that vacation? You remember?
99, where did we go? Probably, Costa Rica.
Nice. Okay, it's a good last one.
Yeah, well, it's a fantastic place, and I'd love to get back there, but it like, these days, biting off that big a chunk of time is
Yeah,
a big
yeah,
commitment, so
hard to do. Location and years in business.
well, so, I've had offices in Cary, for the last, few years, but I discovered along the way, that I was only ever at my office for about 6 hours a week because I was either out seeing clients in their place of business
Mhm.
or, some of my clients are remote, like, I have clients scattered all over the country,
Okay.
so for them, they were obviously never in my office, and so, what I discovered over the last, about year, I guess a little over a year, is I do most of my business at the Maiden Inn where our BNI meets,
Yeah.
right? So they've got a nice quiet library there where I can meet with my clients
Is
face
that
to
when you walk
face.
down the hallway back to your off to the room where you guys meet? On
Yeah,
the
there's on the
one on the
left.
left of the cafeterias or the restaurants on the right?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah. So
Oh, very
so
nice.
like there's some nice quiet tables in there, and usually there's a spot open. And I've discovered that having an office where they serve coffee all day
Mhm.
and there's a bar and a restaurant
Yeah.
is in all ways superior to being in your room by yourself.
And you walk in and the staff goes,
Yeah,
"Scott!" Kinda like
exactly.
cheers, right?
I like to think I'm sort of the norm of the Maiden Inn.
I'll
Um,
new tag on your business card.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And the other thing I do is like I tip exorbitantly, right? Because sometimes I'll sit down at a table in there
Yes.
in the morning and they'll bring me a cup of coffee and I'll sit there for 3.5 hours, meeting
Yeah.
clients or sending emails or stuff like that. And I want to make sure that they're taken care of. I mean, and they don't seem to mind, but I'm like, ring it up
Yeah.
because I got to be able to tip you
Yep.
500% on this cup of coffee.
Nice. Well, good.
But and I just viewed that as being like, you just got to take care of people, and also,
Yep.
you know, like it's still cheaper than office rent.
Oh, yeah, but it's just a good life lesson, Scott, you know? Just like if you help, just it's little things. Now, if you're gonna have to pay $500 tip, that's one thing, but you pay $10 tip and you do that a couple times a week, but you're right, it's still gonna be way cheaper, but and they're gonna appreciate that, and they'll be on the lookout for you. Previous types of jobs, I enjoy this part of the conversation because I kinda know your work history. I don't wanna we'll talk about that later. I want that high school job or that college job that's most memorable for whatever reason. Our friend Joe Navarra told a story about how he got fired from a paper route.
Oh, wow.
Great story.
Um, yeah, so, when I first, well, this is a great segue to that, right?
Okay.
So I went to college, out of high school,
Mhm.
and, I lasted a year at NC State. I was a double major, with, chemical engineering and pulp and paper science and technology. And
Ooh.
after a year, I knew that I probably didn't wanna be a chemical engineer, and I definitely didn't wanna be a pulp and paper science and technologist, so it was a stupid move. But I quit school and got a full-time job, uh, uh, for a little while working at a video store, and then I got a job working at a paper co or at a printing company.
Okay.
It turned out that shortly after I left that company 5 years later, Joe Navarra bought it. It was
Oh, really? Chapel
yeah,
Hill?
Chapel Hill Printing and Graphics, yeah. And so we knew some of the same people.
Oh,
When Joe and
okay.
I met each other, we knew people that
Oh,
we
that's
we had both
funny.
worked with there. And so, yeah, I worked at Chapel Hill Printing and Graphics for about 5 years,
Okay.
and I worked with just a great group of people and also my boss. But I just bumped into one of, the guy who used to be my manager there. His name was Rick Matthews, and, he was one of those guys who was kinda like a surrogate father figure for me
Mhm.
in the years I was doing that. I got that job when I was 19 and worked there till I was 24.
Yeah.
So, I started that job as a college dropout, and I ended that job as somebody that had a little bit of expertise in
Okay.
operating that equipment and was a, married guy who was putting his wife through physical therapy school.
Okay.
And,
Mm.
so I did a lot of growing up there,
Yeah.
and he was a good guy to kinda have as a mentor and somebody to yell at me when I was an
There you go, 'cause
idiot.
we all needed that.
Yeah,
We still do sometimes.
so yeah, so that was
Oh, good
kind of
story.
one of
Okay.
my early things. But yeah, I've done about every dumb thing there is to do in terms of underutilizing my talents.
What was your first job in high school?
So my first job in high school actually ended up being the accidental path into my first business. My my first job in high school, I worked for a friend of mine's mother. Uh, Her name is Betty Thorne, and she's retired now, but she owned the largest court reporting service in North Carolina. And so so court reporters,
Mhm.
like stenographers
Yeah.
who do stuff in the legal system where they record everything that's said during a deposition. And I went to work for her, and I kinda just did, like, office work,
Yeah.
like packaging up depositions to mail them out to attorneys, or sometimes when they had, like, expedited stuff that had to go out that day, I would drive all around Raleigh and deliver those, packaged up, depositions to attorneys' offices. And then at some point in there, she said, I think it was in the summertime, she said, "Hey, I need somebody to go videotape this deposition." So I said, "Okay." And she's like, "Look, all you got to do is point this camera at the person sitting in the seat and just record it. It's real easy."
Alright.
And so I did that. And years and years and years later, um, I ended up, I kind of been effectively laid off from my job as a commercial real estate appraiser. And she was like, "Well, look, I got some video work. I know you know how to do it. Why don't you come do some of that work for me?" And I did. And, it gave me a few bucks
Mhm.
while I was um, trying to figure out what else, where else could I find a job? And I said, "Look, Betty, I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
But, working for 20 bucks an hour, a handful of hours each week or 10 or 15 hours a week is just not really gonna cut it." And she said, "Well, look, why don't you just start your own business? And you can have all the money from this rather than just the hourly I'm paying you." Because she
Really?
said, it's so hard to find somebody that has the
Yeah.
flexibility to work these hours because it really varies from week to week.
Okay.
And so uh, it was a dumb business for me to start, but I started it anyway.
Is
Um,
that why each of your clients
it
went
dropped
on
right in
it?
my lap. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. So so that was my first job in high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. We'll get back to the videographer job because you're
Sure.
telling us a story before we came on the air that's pretty good. Want to get back to that. Next part of the member bio sheet is personal information. So you are newly married.
Yeah.
And I always ask people, how did you meet? And do you both tell the story the same way?
I don't know, maybe.
Generally, the answer I get
Yeah.
too. So
I mean, so we knew each other as friends for years before we got together.
Mm,
And we sort of found ourselves both newly divorced about the same time. And we kind of thought, well, I guess we're putting the friendship at risk if we get together
yeah.
romantically, but you know, why not? Life is short.
Mm,
And so her name is Danielle. And she lived in Nashville for most of her life, and she works for Biltmore, and she
okay.
does the web content management for their website.
Oh,
And
wow.
so she lives here and works full time from home, doing that. But yeah, so I don't know, like I don't feel like it's too super exciting the way we got together, but I guess a little bit we were taking a chance.
Well, good. Okay. And you have a daughter, you mentioned.
Yep, her name is Samantha. She is graduating from high school next week, and so she's graduating third in her class,
Oh, wow.
and is
Congratulations.
she's got a full tuition scholarship to St. John's this fall, where she's going to study pharmacy.
You're going to send her up north.
Well, she's going to go up north whether I want her to go or not. But I don't know that it's much a matter of me sending her as her going wherever she wants to go. So.
Can we assume that's a pretty good pharmacy school? Is that why?
Yeah,
Okay.
the the only schools that she applied to they have an accelerated pharmacy program.
Oh,
So, in 6 years, she's gonna be going from now to doctor, and,
wow.
which is weird for me to think about, but,
Yeah.
there it is. So yeah, UNC has that same program, and I think she thought, "That's a little too close to home." Um,
Had that thought when I
that's
went off to college
that's
too.
where that's
So,
where her mother went to college, and I
oh,
think
okay.
she thinks that we're gonna drop in and have lunch with her
Yeah.
all the time if
Yeah.
she goes to UNC.
Yeah. That's not good.
Uh, so So Queens,
You wouldn't, but it's still not good to have that thought, right?
right,
So,
right. Queens, New York will be far enough away that we
yeah.
won't be dropping in for
Well,
lunch
that'll give you a
unexpected.
reason to go visit New York and the surrounding
Yeah,
area,
it
and
will. I mean, I'm pretty clear on the fact that I'm a country mouse and not a city
mhm,
mouse.
yeah.
So I feel like a little bit of a fish out of water when I'm up in New York City, but I've been a few times, and it's nice to visit for a weekend.
Yes. Oh, I'm with you on that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Any animals in the house?
yeah. So we have two cats that we've had for a long time. We just got a new puppy in March, and he's a handful. His name is Wilbur, and he's here's a interesting little. They gave us the doggy DNA test, and he's 37% pit bull and 25% Chihuahua, and
Mm.
a part Italian Greyhound and part Pomeranian. So
Huh.
he's a weird mix, but yeah,
Interesting family
yeah,
tree there, right?
he's gonna end up being look like about a long, skinny 20-pound pit
Okay.
bull.
A
So
pit bull and a chihuahua as
that's
parents.
what they think
Boy,
his parents were, yeah.
that's a
Um,
dog joke waiting to happen.
but yeah, and we also have a boa constrictor that came with the wife. But
Right.
it's not a problem for me. I kept snakes as pets when I was a kid.
Did your parents know
Because
that?
oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
My mother is terrified of snakes and hated it. But and then I'm pretty big into my aquarium hobby.
Okay.
I keep fish.
You had mentioned the
Um,
pond out front. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good looking pond out there. It got some goldfish and koi in there. I saw, and the turtle also. That's
Yeah.
nice.
Sunning
Yeah.
himself. Yeah.
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 But yeah, so I kind of there was a little bit of a break in the years where I was getting divorced and living in an apartment, and before we got our house. But this year I was like, I'm getting back into it.
Yeah. Okay.
And I've had a ton of fun getting back into the hobby.
All right. So we've learned the next question is hobbies and activities of interest, but we've learned gaming and fish and animals and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, I think the only other stuff aside from that is like I enjoy making stuff. I say woodworking, but if I'm honest about it, like kind of carpentry.
okay.
I like to build stuff. I Anybody who's Facebook friends with me got a bit of a blow by blow a couple years ago when I built two shop buildings in my backyard, two 12 by 16
Oh,
buildings that
nice.
I built them entirely from scratch. Bought the kits from
You
the
need a new one back here?
building supply. Yeah, and we can talk afterwards.
Talk later.
But yeah, so I built those, and one of them is designed to be my woodworking shop, and the other one is my wife's pottery studio.
Oh, okay.
And the only part I did not do, have no business doing, is I did not run the power out to them. I hired a local
Good.
company
Yeah.
to do that,
Yeah.
but I am going to wire up all the outlets.
Okay.
Like all the outlets and switches and stuff. I'll do myself. So
And they're both still standing and operating, looking good. And
yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah. They haven't burnt down yet.
How long did it take you to build those?
About 3 months for the
Okay.
most part. Yeah, I mean, like, we got them. 80/20 rule applies, right? Like,
Mhm.
we got them almost all the way done, and I mean, got them sealed in and weatherproofed and everything, and the last step of the process that had to be done was, we built a deck that connected them.
No.
So, they face each other, and so
Yeah.
there's, like, a deck space that connects the two of them,
Okay.
and we got married on that deck
Oh,
last
very cool.
October.
Okay.
So, of course, in September, I
Oh,
was finishing building the
yeah.
deck because, that's why the last minute was invented.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Did you have any longtime friends betting that you wouldn't be able to do it right or it'd come out oblong or
No,
no
actually,
roof on it,
none
something
of
like
my
that?
well, there's a bunch of jokes were made about me, "Don't fall off the roof," because years and years ago, I fell off my roof at the house I used to live with because the roof was leaking during a rainstorm, and I went up there to fix it, and I slipped off the edge of the roof, busted my chin open, but,
Did you went up during the rainstorm?
well, yeah, that's when the roof's gonna leak, Mike. Like, if I had gone up there after the
Can't you put the
rainstorm.
bucket on the floor?
No, unfortunately, it was leaking around the flashing on the chimney, so it was coming in and getting into the ceiling. I
Oh.
was gonna have water damage
Oh,
and
okay.
potentially mold, so I was like, "I gotta go up there and fix this."
Did you at least get it covered before you fell off?
No, I didn't. Yeah.
Double
I'll tell you a
whammy.
real quick little story about that. I, so I my wife and daughter, my ex-wife and my daughter were they were out of town at Disney World.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, I had gotten some movies, and I was gonna sit there and watch movies, and I poured myself a little bit of bourbon
Sounds like a
and
plan.
to enjoy the evening, and then I hear this dripping noise. And so I paused the movie in the first 5 minutes in, I go upstairs and there's water coming down. I'm like, that's bad.
Ooh.
So I was like, I got to go up there and do this. So I grab a tarp and the ladder and I go to climb up on the roof. And my foot slips off the edge of the roof before I even really got on the roof. And I fell, kind of hit the ladder on the way down and
Ooh.
then land on the deck, kind of face down.
Gee.
And so I laid there for a second, kind of breath was knocked out of me. So I need to kind of gather myself, but I wiggle my toes
Oh,
and
yeah.
like, that's all
Take stock
working.
and everything.
And I move my fingers and that's all working. And I'm like, I think I maybe got out of this
As you're
thing
getting rained on,
with
right?
no damage. Yeah. And it's about, like 6 o'clock in the evening in the summertime. And so it's still light outside, but I'm laying, I had kind of fallen face down and I'd rolled onto my back to kind of, catch my breath and do this stuff. So I was like, I think I'm okay. And then I start pulling myself up and I look kind of where I landed and there's a lot of blood. And I thought, well, I must not be all the way okay. And I kind of feel around for a second. I realize there's I busted my chin open when I landed on the deck. And I'm like, well, I wonder how bad it is. And I go inside, I'm like, I gotta go to the ER. And but I'm like, well, am I okay to drive myself? Like I'm a little shaken up by it and I'm bleeding and I'm like, am I gonna, so I called my dad and my dad comes over to take me to the ER and he gets me over there and they stitch me up and I'm fine. And I come home. But before I walked out the door to go to the ER, I took the glass of bourbon. I was like, well, if I drink this now, there's going to be a whole lot more questions. So I put it in the fridge and I said, I'll see you later.
Yeah.
And when I got back from the ER at like 10:30 that night, I pulled the glass of bourbon back out and add a little bit more ice and got back to watching my movies. So yeah. So yeah, I caught some stick from my friends. Like, when you're going to put the roof on the sheds yourself, shut up.
But at the end of the day, the tarp covered enough, or
well, I went back up there the next day and got it on. It had leaked in there a little bit, but I basically I got it before too much damage was done.
What movie were you watching?
Into the Wild. I remember I was watching Into the Wild, which is a kind of an interesting movie, but I think the real reason I remember it is because it was the movie I was watching that night.
That's funny. Your burning desire is to?
My burning desire, that's a good question. I've been getting asked this since the day I joined BNI. So I would say to help as many small businesses grow and prosper as possible.
Cool.
Again, I just think it's such a tough gig to be in business for yourself, and small businesses have so few resources available to them, and even the ones that are pretty accessible, a lot of times people either don't know where to find them or they don't know how to ask for what they need. I found that small businesses either get sucked into making these huge cumbersome business plans that like look like you're going to hand them to a bank when you go to ask for money. Very few of them ever do go to a bank and ask for money. Very few of them would qualify to get money from a bank if they did, but they have this giant, highly speculative, made up business plan that has no real bearing on what they actually need to do to make the business succeed in the next 30, 60, 90 days. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'd say to some degree that's been my hope and my goal for a long time, but for years, what I really was doing on a personal level was just trying to have a full practice.
Yeah.
And I've succeeded in that and maybe then some. But now I've realized that if I want to be in a position where I don't start telling people I'm too busy to help you, I have to grow the business beyond just me.
Yeah. And we could spend a whole nother hour on debt service, but that's another killer. That's a huge killer business. Now, a lot of people watching today haven't gotten to know you just yet, but they will by the end of the show. So what is something else we don't know about you? What's the last time you were the featured speaker of your chapter? What'd you say?
The last time I was the featured speaker. It feels like it's been a long time. What did I say that people don't know about me? I have superhumanly smooth elbows. My elbows never get ashy or crusty. I guess I got good skin.
That a hereditary thing, you think? Thanks, Mom and Dad.
I think I probably get that from my mom.
Too funny.
Yeah, right. Well, it's tougher in the winter. You know,
Yeah, you gotta watch out for
it's
that
drier,
because
it's
oh
drier
boy, and you're
once in a
getting
while.
older,
I
so
have
look
to put
out.
lotion on. No, I don't know. Again, I kind of wear my heart on my sleeve a lot.
Yeah,
Mike, like I tell people, like I'm in the authenticity business, right?
yeah,
Like coaching relationships do not hold up very well when people are holding back information. I
correct.
tell
Yeah,
people my first obligation is to get to know my client as well as I can, as fast as I can, so that I can, because I don't really have a coaching program that where I like dump a business in on one end and turn a crank and it comes out better on the other end.
yeah,
I'm coaching the business owner on how to make this a good business for them. And so,
yeah.
you
And they've
know,
gotta know what you've been through and what you're honest about.
yeah,
I don't like business owners who have never failed, because what can I learn from you?
yeah,
Because I have, we all have, but it's okay to say that. And a
yeah.
lot of people have trouble admitting that, "Oh, I lost a business or I bought it. bought it for 200,000, sold it for 100," whatever the story is. But that's what I love, the stories of the people that got knocked down and now they're up 5 floors above where they got knocked down from.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, like I said, I mean, I'm not trying to be coy about the question. It's just that
That's fine.
I tend to be pretty open about
Yeah.
most of my life, and especially the parts where things didn't work out the way I wanted them to.
But
I always
that's
say
yeah.
like experience is what you get when you don't get what you want.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and give me street smarts. A lot of times over book smarts. I love the savvy street people, the fighters and
Yeah.
all that, because those are the ones that are gonna work through that wall. All right, one of the things I love to do on the show, not only is talk about BNI and for people to get to know the guest, but also educate them a little bit. Because, like I said, we have realtors, insurance people, chiropractors, we have all kinds of cool people on here. Somebody watching today has just started a business, or they're thinking about starting a business, or they've got a family member or a friend. So, what's a couple things they need to know starting out that, okay, this needs to be in place? My father in law is former rescue helicopter pilot.
Yeah.
And that damn checklist he has drives me nuts when we go somewhere, because we can't leave the house until the list is fit. All that stuff just drives me nuts, but it's necessary. And I get that. So, what kind of advice would you give to somebody that's right on the cusp of getting started? Two or three things that they need to have in place before they move forward.
You mentioned that you've had Bill Davis on the
Yes.
show before.
Yeah.
Bill Davis is a good friend and a mentor of
Good
mine.
dude. Yeah.
Yeah, Bill. I could sit here for the next hour and talk about stuff I've learned from Bill. But one of the things that I really think strongly about that he says is the only advantage that small business has over big business is speed of execution. That is the only advantage. Big business has got more resources. They've been around longer. They've got more personnel. They've got a bigger cushion if things go badly. But but speed of execution is something that a small business can do better because you can change your mind about how you're going to greet people or what your marketing plan is going to be or where you're going to network. You can change your mind about that today and start doing it today.
Mhm.
And so, um, one of the things that I really encourage somebody is like worry less about having a business plan and more about having an action plan.
Okay.
Think more about like, what am I going to do this week, this month, the next 90 days? And how am I going to measure whether that is successful? What metrics am I going to use? And also, like, how am I going to discipline myself to keep doing it when it doesn't work the first time?
Yep.
Because it's not going to work very well the first time. I mean, you asked me about recent maybe talks I had done. And the one I did 2 weeks ago, I guess, was Triangle Business Breakfast had our third anniversary. And one of the little stories I told there was how so we kept the metrics, we kept track of like how many people came. And like the first week it was about I think 13.
Yeah.
The second week it was 8. The next week it was 6. And about on week 6, 2 people showed up. And I like psychologically, I was ready to quit because, you know, I
Mhm.
mean, that feels like a failure. And there's 2 things that saved me that day. One of them was the 2 people that were there absolutely loved meeting each other.
Okay.
Um, uh, and they've done tens of thousands of dollars worth of business together since then. right? And they thank me, every once in a while. They're like, "Oh, I'm so glad I met that person.
Yeah.
Thanks for hosting Triangle Business Breakfast." So they didn't think it was a failure. The other thing that saved me was my partner at the time was Ashley Morrison with
Mhm.
Abundant Marketing, and
Just had a
Ashley,
birthday as well.
yeah,
Yep.
she did. That's right. Her birthday is like 2 days before mine
Mhm.
or something like that. But but she stood up at the end of the meeting, like it was in front of 30 or 50 people, and she said, "Next week our speaker will be whoever it was," right?
Yep.
And acted like, well, we're going to be here. And that's one of those big turning point moments for me
Okay.
is just remembering that, like, you know, when it goes wrong, you learn something.
Yes.
And if you
You
don't go
got it.
back and do it again, there's no point in you even having learned that,
Yeah.
right? That's a wasted lesson if you give up when it fails. Um,
When somebody's starting a business, if they don't know a business coach or don't have access to one, who are some good mentors that you would recommend that they reach out to? If, even if it's just, hey, I got an idea of this business, who would you recommend they run it by? Or what types of people?
Well, I mean, so what I did when I was starting my first business was I talked to every other person I knew who was a friend of mine who was running their own business. And I got a
Okay.
lot of different advice. And when I think back on it now, I think some of it wasn't the best advice. Like one of the people I talked to said something that I think it was smart in a way, but it's like a bad idea to live by, which was she said, "Well, just remember, when you own the business, you think you're the boss, but everybody is your boss. Your employees are your boss, your clients are your boss,
Mm,
you're like
right.
the vendors that you pay, they're your
Yeah.
boss because when they come knocking and they're like, hey, you owe me money,
Mhm.
suddenly they're your boss. When your client calls you at 10 o'clock on a weekend, you know, they're your
Yeah.
boss. They're saying, where's my deliverable? And when your employee calls in sick and says,
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
not going to be there,
yeah.
they're being your boss. They're telling you what you have to do that day. And like I get it, but
Yeah.
at the same time, you gotta structure your business so that that you're running it, not it's running you.
Yeah.
And so, but anyway, like, I mean, that's not a like, I'll tell you, before I even well, no, I won't say that. Right after I joined my BNI group was when I met Bill Davis for the
Mhm.
first time. And I love, what happened in that conversation was, um, Bill says, "How much you charge?" And I told him. He's like, You're never gonna make it on that." He's like, "You gotta start charging more money." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Well, Bill, I've only been at this time, I was like, I've only been doing this for a couple of years really, and, I still sort of feel like I'm sorta offering this kinda like introductory rate and stuff like that." He said, "Listen, man, if you went to a surgeon and you told them that you needed a surgery, and they said, 'Well, you're in luck because I've only just gotten out of surgery school, like, last week, and I'm not really that good at this surgery yet, so I can give it to you for cheap.'" He's like, "Man, you would run screaming out of that office. You would never, ever use them or recommend them." And he said, "You cannot let, uh, you know, your sort of newness in the business, um, hold you back from charging a rate that's gonna let you make it, because if you don't make it, nobody's getting helped, and you got in this business to help." So, well, I tell people all the time, like, "Look, if you've got $100 to spend on your business,
Mhm.
go do 100 Days to Abundance with
Yeah.
Bill Davis,
I'm doing
because
his, yeah, next one.
it's like business boot camp."
Yep.
And if you come out of that not sure whether you can execute those things or whether you can make it,
Yeah.
then take the easy route. Go work for somebody else. It's so much easier, and you'll probably make more money, at least for a while, doing it for somebody else. But so I still recommend like that. It's
Yeah.
like if you only have a little bit of money to spend or you're just getting started, go do that.
Yep.
You could probably do that while you're still working your day job before you even launch the thing. It's 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was the next question I was going to ask you. We're here with Scott Moore, scottmoorecoaching.com. If somebody wants a side hustle, they have the idea of a business, but they don't want, you would recommend, I know, just in sitting here, you would tell them, don't leave your day job yet or your benefits. Cause I know Bill Davis, I've heard him say that too. So don't leave your benefits yet, but to start something on the side to find out how to grow the business and will this work? Would you recommend that?
Sure. I mean, I
Okay.
think that's a way of dipping your toe in the pool. I tell people that, so first of all, one of the underlying things that I think about, about being in business is that like, and again, I'm talking about like a lot of people that I'm discussing this with are running micro businesses that they're trying to make a job for themselves, that's going to pay, you know, 75,000 or 100,000 or $200,000 a year. And what I tell them is if your personal finances are not working, then there's no way for your business finances, right?
Mhm.
If you are like, they're going to cut my electricity off, like you've got a problem that no amount of business savvy can solve. So, so yes, I mean, absolutely work it on the side while you're doing something else, or, be in the fortunate position that I was in, which is like have a spouse that is
Mhm.
got a pretty steady job while you're building the business up. I ran my videography business for 18 months after I started my coaching business and did both because I knew that the it would take a while for the coaching business to get any traction and start
Mhm.
making the money I needed it to. And even that, like it still took me years after that to make anywhere close to the money I wanted to on it. But yeah, absolutely develop it as a side hustle. What I tell people is when you are working another 20 or 25 hours a week on your side hustle, then you'll know that you can probably make that
Mhm.
your full-time business. Like when
Yeah.
you're working, you're like, I'm exhausted because I'm working the day job
Okay.
and doing this thing. That when I tell people like I'll try to stop you, what I mean, and if I can't, you'll probably make it. When you're working that hard for that long, that's when I'm like, okay, you're unstoppable.
Yeah.
Like you're killing yourself to do this. So it's time to stop killing yourself and retire the day job
Yeah.
and then go all in on the business at that point.
And I always like those stories because I always know a side hustle generally started from a passion for something.
Mhm.
You want to build this, start that, and I love seeing those stories because usually, if it's a passion, you're going to put everything you own, everything you have into that to make that work
Yeah,
because you want to wake up every morning going, "That's what I want to do every day."
yeah. And I may be biased too because like part of the position I'm in is I tell people like when you're my client, I am all in for you,
Mm.
right? And first of all, that puts me in the position where I only work with people I like. Right? I can only work for people I
Yeah.
like because, like, I'm not gonna bust my butt the way I do for a client if I don't like them, and that limits my market,
Mhm.
right? But it also means that I don't spend a lot of days going like, "Ugh, that guy sucks. I
This
hate."
guy again.
Yeah, I hate spending time with them. Um, but but to your point about being passionate, it's like, I can't care more about your business than you do, and
No.
so, it's people who are just in it for the money, like, I mean, I don't know, maybe if they're really passionate about the money. Like, money gets a bad rap sometimes,
Mhm.
but it's a great scorekeeping mechanism, if
Oh, yeah.
nothing else.
Yeah.
So if they're passionate about what they're gonna do with that money, if they wanna build a business up and then sell it,
Yeah.
I can help them with that. But I just can't like, if it's a total drag for them all the time, and I'm like, "Well, you have no passion for this." Like, then what I think is they're in the same kind of business I was in before I got out of my videography
Yeah.
business, you know? I pulled the plug on that because I realized, like, I have no interest in going out and hustling up any more work. My friend Betsy, said to me this one time, she said, "That's like being in a pie eating contest, and the prize is more pie." Yeah,
I
I'm
like that.
can't keep doing that.
Yeah. Now, the 3 of us, here at the table have a couple of years experience in the real world and working and stuff like that. And you always want when you meet somebody younger and trying to give them some advice, you can have that job you really, really like and everything that comes with having to be able to support a family, being able to travel, things like that. Because some people think, "Well, it's this job, it pays the bills, I gotta have this," but and I know you work with people because you had mentioned earlier, some people you work with are looking for a promotion at work or something different, but you just want to tell people it's out there. It takes some work on your end to go find it, but usually it's out there, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the things that I understand is, like, change is hard,
Mhm.
and most people don't like it,
Correct.
and people who are entrepreneurial have a higher comfort level with risk and change than the average person. So I treat my entrepreneur business coaching clients very different than I treat my career coaching
Mm.
clients. Like I embrace my career coaching clients with like, let's try to figure out what's the least amount of change that you can do that will give you a life you'll be happy with. career that you'll be happy. Because that's all most people are willing to do. I mean, they're not crazy like we are,
Yeah.
and that's okay. It's okay for them to be much more conservative in how
Mhm.
they do that. It takes all kinds of people to run this world. And so, um, I may be built differently than they are, and I may be much more willing to take a risk or not know how much I'm gonna get paid next month than they are. But most people aren't like that. Most
Yeah.
people are comfortable in the corporate world, and so they need different kinds of things. Um, but I do say, look, if you hate your job, you will be leaving.
Mm.
Like sooner or later, feet first or head first, you'll rage quit one day,
Yeah.
and that's not a good place to be. Like you'll have burned some bridges, and those might be important bridges.
Yeah.
So figure out a way to have an enjoyable career before it's too late.
Well, and I like the story of the lady that hired you to do the videography. Was it 5 years later, you go back to her, and that relationship was still there because you didn't burn the bridge,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Which was important because a lot of people are like, "I'll leave, I don't really care," and you gotta think your way out the door.
yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. And for what it's worth, it was way more than 20 years. I worked for her when I was in high school, and then again when I was 32,
Okay.
33. Yeah. So it was a long gap in
Yeah.
between there. But yeah, it's funny how things go. I mean, I still am Facebook friends with her and
Good.
follow her adventures as she's retired, and she's going around in an RV all over the country,
Oh,
and lives
nice.
down at the beach and stuff like that.
When I
So
in back in previous jobs, I was managing a couple of facilities and I had staff and everything, and I always was intrigued on the resume or on the application they filled out who their references were.
hmm,
I loved when I saw former boss
sure,
because that tells me, okay, you manage that process right, and that boss still thinks something of you.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
instead of like cousin, mother, next door neighbor, things like that. Real quick, one of the other things you do, you're talking about obviously you help people with career stuff. If somebody's in a job right now where they really feel like, you know what, I should be promoted, or I'm ready, or I know they've got that coming up, what's a couple things they need to think about before they go either approach their boss, approach somebody like you? A couple of tidbits you could give them.
Well, so the very first question I ask when anybody says that they want a raise or a promotion, I say, "Have you asked for the raise or promotion?"
No.
And honestly, in a lot of cases, they haven't.
Yeah.
And I know we don't have a lot of time on this, but I'll take just a second to say, one of the concepts that was introduced to me in the last several years that I find really useful is the idea that people are either from an ask culture or a hint culture. And that means that what they learn in their early
Nice.
life, living at
Yeah.
home with their parents, is the best way to get what I want is to ask for it. Or the best way to get what I want is to hint at how good I've been or, how I deserve something and hope
Yeah.
that they will give it to me without me asking. And people who internalize that hint culture, and again, I'm not making a value judgment. Let me be clear. Most of the world is hint culture.
Yes.
Like globally, almost all of Asian culture, almost all of Middle Eastern culture is hint related.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
don't come out and say, "I want that." You turn it down when it's offered 3 times and then you accept it. That in Japanese culture, that's why IBM had such a hard time doing business in Japan back in the '80s is because they would think they'd struck a deal with the Japanese. Like, there was no deal there, that they rudely asked for exactly what they wanted, and,
Okay.
and there was no deal struck. You turn a gift down 3 times before you say yes to it in that culture. And
Okay.
so people internalize that, and they're like, "Well, they should just know. Like, don't
Mhm.
they see how hard I'm working?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "No, because your boss is busy with a million other things."
Yeah.
And you may be valuable to them, but most of them don't pay attention to what you're doing all day. They're just like, "Hey, I'm not hearing any complaints, so you must have done your job.
Yeah.
That's great." And and it's one of the reasons why working on with the business owner side of things, I'm like, are you keeping your employees happy? Are you doing regular evaluations to them? And one of the biggies on that front is I tell my all of my clients, ask your employees at least once a year, which part of your job would you like to stop?
Okay. I like that.
Because if they stop doing the thing that they suck at and hate,
Yeah.
and they gives them more time to do the things that they actually enjoy about their work, you'll get more productivity out of that person.
Yeah.
And you can always hire somebody else to do the other part. Um, But yeah, if you're going for a promotion or a raise, first thing to do is ask,
Yeah.
say, what would I need to do to get a
Mhm.
raise around here? Like
Yeah.
I've been, let me tell you what I've been up to in case you haven't noticed, and tell you how I feel like that qualifies me to be promoted to this position.
Yeah, because your boss may not know that you want that job, because some people don't really want to be promoted, because with that comes more responsibility. They love the money, but comes more responsibility, than more decision making, and some people just don't really wanna do that, again, which is fine.
Yeah,
But yeah, they ask, I like that. Right. So that's another reason why you should go to scottmoorecoaching.com, and he will help you get to where you want to be. Scott, we appreciate it very much today, enjoyed it.
yeah, absolutely.
Happy belated birthday,
Thanks very
and
much.
hope the rest of the year goes good for you. We appreciate you joining us on Triangle BNI, and each week we bring you a successful small business story from Triangle BNI, and we will see you next week with another good story.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Telestream's Wirecast software, StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.